Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling a massive, literally prehistoric mystery. It sits right at that fascinating intersection of faith, science, and the ancient world. Like, if you've ever read the biblical creation account and suddenly wondered, wait, where exactly does a 60-foot T-Rex fit into all this? Well, you're in the right place because we're going to dive into a perspective that tackles that exact question. Now, right off the bat, I want to mention that this explainer is a visual accompaniment to the Between the Verses questions from our listeners' episode called Where Dinosaurs Fit in Genesis. And seriously, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, please go check it out. You won't regret it, I promise. It's available right now on YouTube and Spotify, and it basically forms the entire foundation of what we're visually mapping out for you today. So here's our roadmap for today's deep dive. We'll hit 1, the big question; 2, lenses of understanding; 3, time and Earth's history; 4, the day 6 possibilities; 5, mysterious creatures; and finally, 6, faith, science, and curiosity. All right, kicking things off with section 1, the big question: dinosaurs and creation. You know, it is incredibly common, and perfectly natural, by the way, to wonder how the timeline of these prehistoric creatures lines up with the biblical narrative. In fact, we've got the exact listener question right here that sparked the whole episode. Where and when did the dinosaurs exist during creation? They lived for millions of years, according to science, so how does that fit into Genesis? The hosts of the podcast make a great point here. Asking this isn't some attempt to rewrite scripture, not at all. It's just asking genuinely great questions from a place of careful reading and, scientific observation. Moving right around to section 2, lenses of understanding, setting the rules. To do this responsibly, the host suggests we need to set up a reliable framework, just so we don't end up confusing scientific theories with actual biblical doctrine. So we've got 3 categories of exploration. First, what the Bible clearly says. This is where believers firmly stand. Second, what science currently understands based on observation. And third, where we are just exploring possibilities. This is for the areas where the Bible is completely silent and we're totally free to wonder. Keeping these lenses separate, that is absolutely crucial for this entire explainer. Next up, section 3, time and Earth's history, God's perspective. So, when we're reading Genesis, the podcast points out something really interesting. The text never actually gives us a mathematical formula for exactly how long a creation day lasted, strictly from Earth's point of view. But it does give us this incredible context about how God experiences time. Take a look at 2 Peter 3:8. With the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. You'll find a really similar thought over in Psalm 90, verse 4, too. It teaches us that God operates on a vastly different scale, completely outside of our human time constraints. Which brings us to a really crucial question. If God's time isn't human time, what does that mean for Earth's history? Well, it essentially opens the door to the possibility that portions of creation could have encompassed incredibly long periods of time from our earthly perspective. And think about it. If those creative periods were remarkably long, that leaves plenty of room for the existence of dinosaurs. But remember our lenses. This is a possibility being explored, not an established doctrine. The episode also highlights this beautiful harmony between 2 different ways of understanding the world. Science investigates the how. It observes physics, biology, geology, like the shifting of the ancient supercontinent, Pangaea. But Scripture, as we see in Romans 1:20, tells us the who. It reveals God's invisible qualities through the things he made. From this perspective, science doesn't replace God at all. It literally just studies his workmanship. And because science and Scripture are looking at totally different aspects of the same creation, we can have a little fun bridging the gap between them. So let's establish what a thought experiment is. It's just an imaginative hypothesis or scenario used to explore a concept. Let me be super clear. It is not biblical fact, and it's definitely not doctrine. It's really just a fun way to wonder about how God's incredibly complex ecology might have actually worked. Okay, so try this thought experiment on for size. Just imagine enormous plant-eating dinosaurs. Their appetites would consume unbelievable, staggering amounts of vegetation. Could those massive herbivorous dinosaurs have functioned almost like giant natural landscapers on a really wild early Earth? And then, to keep those massive populations from getting out of control, you'd have carnivorous dinosaurs to maintain the balance. It's just an imaginative hypothesis, sure, but it really highlights the incredible ecological balance and design that we find woven all throughout creation. That takes us right to section 4, the day 6 possibilities, a packed timeline. So that whole idea of wild, sprawling habitats naturally leads us to the sixth day of creation. And day 6 really stands out because of the sheer volume of activity happening here. I mean, look at this list. On day 6 alone, land animals are created, humanity is created, Adam names the animals, the garden is planted, the command is given, and Eve is created. Because this period is so jam-packed with activity, some thinkers have considered the possibility that the sixth day might have actually encompassed a really long span of time from Earth's perspective. The Bible doesn't explicitly say it, but man, it's a fascinating observation. Which brings us to the giant stegosaurus in the room. Were dinosaurs still alive when Adam was created? Is it possible? Yes. Is it certain? No way. Genesis is entirely silent on this specific question. And because the Bible simply doesn't answer it, we really shouldn't be dogmatic about it either way. However, the text does give us some pretty curious details about ancient animals. Take a look at Genesis 3:14, spoken to the serpent right after the fall. You shall go on your belly. Now this really seems to imply a physical change, right? Did the serpent originally have legs? And if so, could that animal have resembled something that we today would classify as a prehistoric reptile or even a dinosaur? It is entirely possible. But again, Scripture doesn't identify this specific species, so we're going to respectfully leave that mystery right there. Moving on to Section 5, Mysterious Creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan. While Genesis might be completely silent on the actual word dinosaur, the book of Job vividly describes two ancient, totally massive creatures that have frankly puzzled readers for centuries. First up, in Job chapter 40, we meet the behemoth. The text describes a creature with massive, powerful characteristics, which has led scholars to a bunch of different theories. Some think this describes a hippopotamus or maybe an elephant, but others look at the description of its massive tail and sheer size and suggest, hey, could it be a sauropod dinosaur or maybe some other unknown extinct creature? The truth is, nobody knows for certain. And then, right next door in Job 41, we have Leviathan. This is a terrifying, hugely powerful creature with armor-like scales and imagery constantly associated with fire. So what is it? A crocodile? Some massive extinct marine reptile? Or is it purely a symbolic description? Once again, when we contrast the biblical text with modern scientific theories, we have to admit that there's just no absolute certainty here. But it certainly sparks the imagination, doesn't it? Finally, Section 6, Faith, Science, and Curiosity, Bringing It Back to God. So zooming out from the specific debates, like what animal Leviathan actually was or exactly when a T-Rex lived, the episode really looks at the big picture. Regardless of whether you hold a young Earth, old Earth, or evolutionary creation perspective, the podcast centers on a few totally unchanging truths. God created life, creation displays incredible order, and science continues to uncover the staggering complexity of what was made. And according to the hosts, every single one of these discoveries, it just offers us another reason to stand in total awe of the Creator. I really want to highlight this powerful quote from the podcast, "Curiosity isn't the enemy of faith." Let that sink in for a second. Asking good, honest questions, like wondering where dinosaurs fit into the timeline, that actually leads to appreciating creation even more. The key is simply keeping Scripture as your foundation, while being honest and totally open about the places where the text is silent. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this provocative final thought. How might exploring the mysteries of the natural world deepen your own awe of the Creator today? Keep asking those great questions, keep exploring the wonders of science, and please, never lose your sense of wonder for this incredible universe we live in. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.